I'd like you for a second to just put yourselves in the shoes of a phalanx soldier, a foot companion in the army of Alexander of Macedon. And this is a time where you've just crossed into India. It is monsoon season. It is pouring down with rain. The ground's muddy and you've just crossed a river. And you are standing shoulder to shoulder in a 16-row deep block of men. You each carry a sarissa, a 15-foot pike. It is very heavy for a spear, about 5 kilograms, and it needs both hands to carry. And you are waiting for battle, and as normal, you are outnumbered 5-1. However, uniquely in this situation, you are staring down 200 war elephants, each one about 3 meters tall, about 5,000 kilograms, covered in a metal jacket, their tusks fitted with heavy metal blades, and on their backs, a castle-like structure carrying 2 to 3 men. And as the battle breaks out, the elephants charge. You have to wonder, what was the experience like of having to fight an elephant? It must have been one of those much more crazy human experiences, like George Carlin likes to say, human experiences of, like the ancient battle era, having to fight an elephant. I mean, to me, even like fighting like a horse would be crazy. I mean, recently there was a video of a unfortunate lady who got trampled by a horse during a horse race, and she's walking across the road and she's not looking, and then the horse just slams her and she goes flying like a rag doll. And it makes you realize, like, wow, like animals, horses, they're powerful, man. If you get hit by a cavalry charge, people are gonna go flying. And you have to wonder, in the Battle of Hydaspes, when you have 200 armored elephants that have been trained, when they're charging into the Macedonian phalanx, what would have happened? War elephants are, incredibly intimidating. They scare the horses. They just trample men. And JFC Fuller, military historian, he says that 1,000 Macedonians are casualties in this fight. And, that initial charge of the elephants is just absolutely devastating. They thrash around. Their tusks, which are fitted with steel, end up impaling men and horses. They heave both men and horses in the air, ragdolling them around. You can imagine them just stomping on people. They're completely mad. However, once, the elephants go in with their initial charge and they're causing the havoc, they end up, being kind of surrounded by Macedonian infantry. The men on the side of the elephant attempt to hamstring it with axes and a kopis, which is a large knife. And meanwhile, while they're trying to hamstring the elephants, other, javelin throwers and light skirmishers, they're attacking the people atop the castle of the elephants, the mahouts. And in more cases than not, the elephants end up getting panicked and maddened, and they'll turn around and they'll just run over their own troops. And that's what happens here. They get panicked, they turn around, they end up running over the Indian troops, and everybody starts, fleeing. To quote Aryan, "In time the elephants, tired and their charges, grew feebler, and with nothing worse than trumpeting. Taking his chance, Alexander surrounded the lot of them, elephants, horsemen, and all, and then signalled his infantry to lock shields and move up in a solid mass. Most of the Indian cavalry was cut down in the ensuing action. Their infantry, too, hard pressed by the Macedonians, suffered terrible losses." Once again, Alexander the Great's army had prevailed. And you could say that this counter to the war elephants was similar to the Battle of Zama, which would happen later on between the Romans and the Carthaginians. So this was when the famous general, the terrifying general, really, Hannibal, in the Second Punic War, nearly destroys Rome. And he's on the way to doing this until he faces his match, Scipio. And Scipio fights off the 80 charging elephants during the Battle of Zama. And what happens is the elephants, they charge into the Roman lines. The Roman lines open up into like these funnels. The elephants walk into them. They get surrounded and they get, peppered with missile weapons. And also trumpets are blown. And the elephants, they panic. They turn around and they end up, just trampling over Hannibal's Carthaginian army. That's always going to be the risk with elephants. On the one hand, they're great shock troops. They're perhaps the greatest shock troops you could really ask for. I mean, they're absolutely devastating, right? But on the other hand, if they get panicked, they're equally as dangerous, to your own side. It's like having a nuclear weapon, right? It just kind of like destroys everybody. But I also think that the ancient Indian war elephants were probably a different class of war elephant. Mahabharata depicts, elephant combat quite a lot. Ancient Indian kings would often have thousands of war elephants. And an interesting fact is that royals actually preferred to ride chariots. However, warriors, and especially elite warriors, would prefer elephants. And I think it's one of those things that if you're a warrior and you can master the art of riding a war elephant, I mean, it's kind of like, going into like a game, right? And you're powered up with like a tank. It's like remember, Battlefield? When you have like the one guy who's like really good at flying planes, and he just like takes out like 100 guys every like 2 minutes. I guess it's the same as like, being an elite warrior trained with a war elephant. You're super good. It's like you can imagine being an elite warrior infantryman versus being an elite warrior on an elephant. If you're an elite elephant warrior, that's like next level, right? And the impact of this can be felt later on, because when Alexander tries to push further eastward into fighting the Nanda kingdom, which is considerably like, an upgrade from King Porus. So you just defeated King Porus. Okay, well now let's try and fight the Nanda kingdom. How many war elephants does the Nanda kingdom have? 6,000. Right, and this nearly causes a mutiny amongst Alexander the Great's forces, and they actually turn back, finally, after, I think, 13 years of campaigning, taking over the modern world, invading Persia, invading this part of India, and now they're not going any further. They're not fighting this army of war elephants. And, this is finally what does it, I think. So, very interesting thing. I think, fighting the war elephants, it's a fascinating subject. Like, again, it's just that human experience. Imagine, like, you're there with your friends, you all carrying these spears or some swords, and you've got 5,000 kilograms, just charging you. That is a different level, and that is ancient battle.